I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Dane Espegard. Dane is a culture consultant who teaches, assists, and executes the implementation of a culture centered around dream achieving. So I'm actually really excited for this one. I love these kind of like mindset, get your head right sort of talks, some of my favorite ones. So first of all, thank you for coming on the show today, Dean.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for the conversation as well.
Would you please just give us your background and then kind of dive into what you're doing? And I'm sure I'm going to have about a million questions. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm married and father of two little girls, and we just relocated down to Austin, Texas. But I've spent the pretty much my entire professional career in the direct sales industry. So I was, I'm sure many people have heard of CUTCO knives. And so I got started with them right out of high school and had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I really thrived with the culture there that was that's centered around personal growth, personal development. And so fell in love with that process and sales and leadership and management at a young age. And so after graduating college at the University of Wisconsin, I decided to stay with CUTCO as a career position. And so had the opportunity basically since 2006 all the way through through the present. I've had the opportunity to lead different size teams with that organization in Wisconsin and then Omaha, Nebraska, and then most recently up in the Twin Cities. And the organization that I oversee now is a top producing company, top producing team within CUTCO corporate. And so I do a lot of sales training, a lot of management development. And so with that comes a lot of visioning, which then kind of led into my most recent project, which is the book, The Dream Machine, and the Dreams workshops that I get the opportunity to do.
That's very cool. I know what CUTCO is, but I've never worked for them or anything like that. But I swear, they churn out a lot of very high achieving and entrepreneurial people. I feel like I've heard a lot of people say, "Oh, I started in CUTCO and kind of worked from there." So something about that culture there must be special. And it sounds like now you're sort of on the contributing side to creating that culture and what's continuing that thing. So it's really interesting just to kind of I think as an outsider you're like, oh, knife sales, like what's the it's not something that you might think of that way. But then I've talked to a few people that have sort of started there and just kind of grown into really kind of very special positions. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with the it's working with a lot of students that are at that young impressionable age, 18, 19, 20 years old, and giving them the platform and the opportunity to practice a lot of life skills like dealing with rejection, learning your pitch, the art of influence, making phone calls, kind of the grit and the hustle mixed with some of the polish that's needed to thrive. And then I think a lot of people, if that's their first, especially for me, I was introduced to the idea of commission and getting paid based on your effort and your energy and what you produce at a young age. I think that then breeds a lot of that, those individuals into that entrepreneurship world.
Yeah, that makes total sense. I mean, I think, people that have jobs where they're essentially just filling time, right? The way I get paid is by filling these number of hours, and it doesn't matter how much work I do during those hours. Like that's unfortunately, I think the majority of the workforce,
right?
Probably not. It's not really a conducive to being productive or successful, or whether that's as an individual or a company. So I think what you're saying, that makes total sense. The that, learning to work from a commission standpoint is a very valuable skill. And I didn't work for CUTCO, but when I was young, my first job was working for my uncle, and he paid me per day. So what I learned was, if I get the work done in half the time, I have the rest of the day to go do what I actually want to do. And it's like, at the time I was like, it was just hard work, and I didn't always enjoy it, but I love what it taught me was that I don't want to punch a clock ever. Like, I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me it's like, if I can get my work done in half the time as someone else, or conversely, I can get twice as much work done in the same amount of time, that should be, represented in your compensation, whatever that is. So I'll let you decide, kind of, do you want to work from the book and backwards, or maybe, kind of what you're doing at CUTCO to create culture and do that, and then how that sort of turned into a book for you. However you want to structure that conversation, I like that.
Well, we can kind of start with the book, because it's pretty all encompassing, and really the book is written, the title of the book's called The Dream Machine. And the idea is to, help any business owner, any leader, to create a culture that's centered around the individual and the individual's pursuit of their own dreams. And it's what we've been doing within my team at CUTCO for basically since 2013. And so through the pandemic, it was kind of evident to me that this was something that was really not just holding our team together, but driving them forward during a pretty tumultuous time for most businesses and most teams. And I love it. So it's really, to me, it's, call it a gift, but I've been very excited to be able to share it with other people, and I could talk about dreams all day. So the concept behind the whole thing is that, each team is just a bunch of individuals trying to really kind of find their way. And, I've been in the knife world for 20 years, but there wasn't any part of me that said, you know what, I'm destined to sell knives, and this is my life's calling. And so when I look back, though, what's kept me really engaged, because really as an employer, as a company, like, that's what we're after, is wanting, individuals to be engaged in what they're doing. And for me, it was always what my performance at work was going to enable me to be able to do in my personal life. And so, what we've been able to do in our organization, and now with other teams as well, is be able to help them to kind of facilitate the creation of somebody's dreams list, and then be able to kind of connect the dots behind how I show up and what I do on a regular basis is connecting to, let's call it, the life of your dreams. And I think sometimes when I use that terminology, it might sound a little grandiose to some. But when I say the life of somebody's dreams, it's really just would you be excited about, the things in your calendar for the next 6 to 12 months?
Yeah. And I think, as I said before, what I have witnessed is people coming out of, working at CUTCO, whether they're still there or moved on, like that culture just seems to be pretty special. And I think, like, literally every company should look at things from this perspective, even though mostly they don't, right? One of the biggest expenses in business is employee turnover.
Right.
And, well, what if they don't want to leave?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I always think, what I see from a lot of employers is when people leave, they want to, they're moving on, going somewhere else. And it's not like, oh, I'm just moving out of state or whatever it is. They're going to work for someone else.
Right.
I feel like employers tend to be like, somehow put it on them. And I'm like, no, that's on you. That's like, if my employees want to leave me, that's on me. Yep. I don't see that as their fault. Like, that's like, I didn't do what I needed to do proactively to keep them. And so to me, it's like, I would happily invest everything I can when I have a good employee. And it sounds like that's, kind of what's happening for you. What do you, maybe talk a little bit about just like, what do you do? What is that process? I think conceptually overall, saying, yes, we want our employees to live the life of their dreams, but what are you doing to kind of implement that?
Yeah. Yes. I think it is easy to say like, yeah, we would want this, but where do we start? And so what we do, we've done this for years, and I just started doing this with other organizations as well, but it's facilitating we call it the dream storming process. So we run a dreams workshop, which is essentially just kind of a brainstorming, um, a time of brainstorming for that individual to kind of get through all of the different categories within what we've kind of defined life to be. And so I take them through 9 different categories, from travel to adventure to, we kind of start with the lighter ones. We get into the heavier ones like family, health, emotional health, spirituality, legacy, finances. And so it's not, the feedback that I hear from a lot of people is it's different than a normal goal setting workshop that somebody's used to, because it really digs into a lot more than just what do I want to do professionally. And we explore different things on there during our brainstorming exercises, such as, hey, in your life, who are the relationships that, that you really want to further, and jot those down, and who are the people that you need to forgive, and who are the people that you need more contact with, and so there's a lot of, while we go through this, I think at first people think of a dreams list as a like bucket list, like, hey, let me experience this and check it off my list. But a lot of the categories actually have more of this is the way I'd like to live, and this is the way I'd like to be. And so we'll spend, it depends on the size of the team, but we'll spend a decent amount of time going through this brainstorming workshop. And most people will end up somewhere around 100 to 200 dreams that are on their list by the time they're done with this over the course of all these 9 categories. We do a little bit of sharing, which is awesome to kind of see the bonds. I just had the opportunity last week to do this for a company that is virtual, entirely virtual. So they're spread out across the US, and they just happen to have their leadership, I don't know what you want to call it, their offsite, their annual offsite, which is really focused on the individuals. And they did theirs in Austin. I just happened to be in the area. So they brought me in to do the dreams workshop. And during that, they're sharing their dreams that they just came up with their peers that they see once a year, basically in person, but they're pouring into each other, which is great. There's tears. Some people are just, going to town on the family section, and they're just kind of, there's a lot of really cool things that come from it. But this, even if a company just did this one thing, I think that's a massive step in the right direction, because so many people are walking around with no idea, what truly would light them up. And we get into this stage of life where, we've got our job that we've had for however long. We show up, we do the stuff we're supposed to do, but a lot of our schedule is obligatory, right? It's I wear my dad hat. These are the things that I do for that. I wear my husband hat. These are the things I do for that. I wear my homeowner hat. These are the things I have to do for that. And then a lot of my time is with work. And, that's fine. But at the same time, if I can get somebody to be excited, you think about that when you have that trip that's in your schedule for 2 months from now, family trip in the summer, and there's so much enjoyment for that trip that happens even before the trip, right? The anticipation, the planning, the conversations. And so it's like, what if we constantly had something in our calendar every month, 2 months or 3 months in front of us? It's like we would just wake up and feel differently because there would always be that next thing. And I think that's where a lot of people kind of hit those like peaks and valleys. They hit that valley of just like, well, now what? And we're constantly pouring out, and we need these opportunities for us to experience these life moments, for us to be filled up, to then pour from that, metaphorically filled up glass, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess speaking from, sort of personal experience, sometimes I don't know what those are. Mm-hmm. Right. Because if you were like, all right, let's put something on the calendar every month or 2 months that's going to be amazing, and it would be hard for me,
yes,
to figure out what that is. And so yep. I think having these. So you sort of said it, but I was going to ask you: are these one-on-one meetings, or these are actually like people are doing this in groups and kind of sharing with each other, which sounds amazing. Is there a size limit, like to the workshop, in terms of the size of the company?
No. And that's the great thing, is that when we do this, a lot of it is internal, like just me and my notebook right here. Right. We've got, these, it doesn't even, they could just do it on a laptop. Right. But when we do the workshops, they get their categories, they start kind of rolling through all the stuff that's in there. They're filling them all out. And then from this, they get to take this thing and then they have we call it your menu. It's like, I've got my menu to plan my next 3, 6, 12 months from. And then as this thing grows, there's so many different elements to this. Like, my wife and I do our annual planning based on this, right? Mm-hmm. So at the end of the year, we sit down and say, hey, how was this last year? We go through, our highlights, and then we pull out our dreams list and say, what's next year going to be, right? Like, what are the dreams that we want to accomplish this next year? So, but it does start with just having that initial list. And when we're in a group, it's the brainstorming process is a lot of just myself giving prompts. And so it's a lot of like, think about this, think about this. And so people are just going to town, silently with their lists. And then we'll do these sections where we call it dream stealing and dream sharing. They get into small groups, 4, 5, 6. They're not sharing their whole list. They're not bearing their soul. It's basically, they pick a handful of things that they want to share. That helps people though, to steal and add more to their list. And what's neat is there's so many more that come up during that process that I didn't share as a prompt, right? But it was personal to that person. But then the connections that happen from that are also pretty cool, because now, John over here, who maybe doesn't work with this person on a regular basis, knows about Sally's, one of her fitness goals or cool things that she'd like to experience at some point. And so when we go through that, I mean, it could be hundreds. It could also, the smallest team I've done is about 12. And that, small, intimate, I think there's really good things no matter what the size of the group is. And then some we do virtually on Zoom and with breakouts. I mean, that's fantastic, with the technology and what we're able to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure it's nice to be in person, but also seems like something that could be done, over Zoom or something like that. So I guess I just want to understand what these workshops that you're doing are kind of separate from your CUTCO work, or you're also doing similar thing, within CUTCO. Is that kind of?
Yeah. So basically what I've been doing internally for the last, 8, 9 years, I'm now doing this in, kind of in alignment with the book. The idea was, let me capture everything that we do into one book so anybody can pick it up and they can just do this A to Z in their business. That's the idea. However, there's always people that say, well, I'd maybe like to bring in an outside speaker for it instead of just the same person that's always talking to my own team. Yeah. And I've also had other people that just say, hey, book's great, but I'd rather still, hire somebody to do it. So I've been going in and doing these workshops, both virtually and in person. And to me, it's like a gift. I love doing these things. And then from that, then there's an integration program for them after that. That stuff's actually pretty simple. This isn't what I love about this. And the reason that I started doing it this way was because I didn't have some big budget for, one person salaried individual, and this was their only job. So I really needed it to be something that was kind of ground up, that was going to build organically within the team, and not something that was going to take an immense amount of time from me. And so, the team that I just met with last week, we have an integration call this coming Monday where I'll talk with their leadership team on a few things that they can do to kind of like keep the dreaming going. And the CEO of that business did this awesome thing at the end. And I went through the last step that we go through after they do the sharing is they pick out some kind of lower hanging fruit and some things that they can take some action on right there before we're done with the session. And he kind of, came in and said, hey, I've earmarked $500 for every single person here. You're going to receive it on your check on this Friday, but it has to be spent on one of your dreams. And so people were taking action, like booking flights, signing up for fitness classes. It was awesome. There were people crying, and it was such a cool, the dreams thing itself was great. But then when the CEO came in and said that, I was like, oh, this is, that's puts the cherry on top in terms of like, I value you, not for what you do, but for who you are as a person.
Yeah. Well, and as a, executive in a company, or the company owner as a CEO, you can put these workshops in place, but if you don't actually mean it, I suppose, whatever. Right. If you're just like, hey, I put on a workshop for you, and they, and then there's nothing, I think in some way you need to participate, support. I think that was exceptional what they did, but like, you have to show that you actually mean this, and that their dreams are important to you. So that's kind of an amazing way to implement it. And again,
I think this is also the leadership principle of like, you have to live it yourself, right? So in other words, the executive has to like, this has to be something that they're like, this is exactly how I feel, right? So far, all of the organizations that I've had the opportunity to work with, one of the decision makers, like this is essentially what they've been maybe doing themselves, but haven't necessarily had a system for it or a way to roll this out to their team.
Yeah.
So when I brought it up, one, for instance, really high powered individual that's in the mortgage space. And she figured out a way to move her family to Spain a few years ago when it was like not the norm, and operate her business, which is on the West Coast, from Spain. And so when I brought this, it was like her team was not surprised that I was brought in to talk about this, because that's what she has been figuring out how to do on her own. Right.
Yeah. That makes sense. You're 100% right. Like the executives in that company have to believe in it, have to live it.
Yeah.
And so it otherwise it's, they'll know, and people aren't dumb. They'll know that you're just, trying to placate. It's like, here's your pizza lunch kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just, some trying to show appreciation, but really, like, you need to believe it. So I think that's great. Do you find that the people are, maybe the executives or whoever is sort of implementing the idea, they're reading the book first and then being, and then deciding, oh, this is great, I want to do the workshops? Or how do you feel like how that idea is getting spread?
I think it's probably, I'd say it's probably less than 50% right now have actually like read the book. It's been more word of mouth. I worked for this company here, and that CEO had raved things about it afterward of, hey, this was fantastic. They told another individual, and I get a call or a, joint email, something like that, where that's happened. Another one was, had the opportunity to do a workshop for a smaller team. And then somebody on that team was a franchisee for another organization.
Okay.
And then, so forth and so on. So it's mostly been word of mouth, very, very organic so far, which has been fun.
Yeah. Well, and I guess if, as we were just saying, it's got to be something that the people are believing in, at the executive level. And so I think if you're passionate about it, you believe in what it's done for your company, then you're likely to pass that feeling on, whether that's to tell other friends that are executives at other companies, or the employees are passing it on to their, just kind of getting it out there. So I imagine that's something that would get, can get extremely popular. So that it's a really cool idea. When you said you're sort of doing these follow-up calls, and how that's all sort of part of it. If people get in the workshop, they get you come in and have that day with everybody, and then kind of on these calls for the follow-up and making sure that things are getting implemented.
Yeah, we do. It's custom to each team. So it's really depending. Like, I do an exploratory call at the beginning. Hey, here's the typical workshop. What do you, and we try and pair it with, like, for instance, this company, the Speaker Lab is the name of the company that I just worked with. And they already had a 3-day offsite that was happening. And so he kind of explained what was happening there. We figured out what fit nicely for that, the size of his team, how they communicate. And then after doing the workshop, then we do an exploratory call after I get to know their team a little bit more on, hey, here's some things for you to be able to do afterward. And there's also some teams that have said, I typically try and have you can do this on your own, here you go. But there's also been some teams that have said, hey, can you stay on by just in a consulting role for this thing for 6 months, 12 months, with the actual integration. And again, right now, this is still, this has been so exciting for me because, the feedback that I get from this stuff is all, wow, this is awesome. I finally have dreams again. Sure. I find, somebody who I met with last week, the CEO sent me a message that she posted on their Slack channel that was, I loved the dream so much. Thank you to the CEO. I loved it so much that I ran my family through the dreams thing for Mother's Day. Right. And so for me, it's like, that's the coolest thing I can hear in terms of, why this is. And I feel very passionate about this because I've been doing this in my personal life with my wife, with my kids, with my organization for a very long time. So, I credit a lot of where we're at in life due to the whole principle.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure it's got to be almost like infectious, right? If you're doing it with your family, that, you know, the people you work with, I mean, it's just got to be something that, you know, people are going to tell their friends about, you know, as you said, someone's taking that and implementing it in their own family at home. Like it's a very cool concept that I think, more than just being, you know, sort of a novelty, once people buy into like believing in their dreams, believing that they can be realities, and implementing that, like, I think that's tremendously freeing.
Yes. Yeah. And I actually would say it's freeing in two ways. One, you know, you think about like the last couple of years and all this stuff that we've just had to like navigate through. And when somebody is pursuing their dreams, like with vigor and excitement, it's the uncertainty that's happening in the world around us. I can speak for the people on my team that have kind of been living this. They still feel very in control. Like, hey, I'm still doing this. Now, travel kind of messed with a lot of stuff, but there were so many things that they were still like, well, I mean, this is a bummer, this, and this, but it doesn't really impact like what the mission that I'm on right now. And I think that is freeing in the sense of, I don't have to follow the social norms necessarily right now in terms of my mental health and my mental space and all of that. I also think this whole thing is freeing for CEOs, because for me, what I experienced is, you know, you get to, and maybe this is a me thing, but you know, when I was at CUTCO as a young individual, I was attracted to more of some of the career positions due to the leaders, right? It was like, I want that guy's life. Like, he looks like he loves what he does. It looks like he earns well, whatever, all of that. And then what's interesting is that once I got to that, I would almost want to kind of dampen the lifestyle that I was able to create for myself, because I knew that the people on my team, well, they don't have the same flexible schedule. They're not in charge. Maybe they don't earn as much. And so I found this, you know, not for long, but there was a certain period where I maybe wanted to have this, okay, here's my public work life, but then be a little quieter about that 1 week trip that I took. And what I was doing, not recognizing it, is I was actually hurting my future development in the organization, because I wasn't allowing the individuals of the team to see, you know, the life that I was building here at this organization. And so when there's a dreams language around it, what it allows the CEO to do is, hey, I care about all your dreams, and here's how we're going to support you with this. And I'm also living mine. In one of the things that we talk about is needing to live this out loud. And so it's, hey, tomorrow I'm going to take the day randomly off. I'm going to take my son skiing, right? It's on my dreams list. It's on his dreams list. And so now it's something that they can vocalize, and they actually get support from, because they need to talk this through so that their team understands, like, hey, I'm living this as well. And this is absolutely, you know, the way that I want you to be.
Right. It's really powerful, I think. And I can completely relate to what you're saying about, you know, sort of maybe reluctance to share what is going on, because I mean, I've experienced some of that in my own life, just as I've grown in my real estate company, and I'm realizing, like, having mindset shifts, realizing like how this is going to free up time. And there have been moments where I've been, you know, really reluctant to talk about it, because I don't know, you don't want to make someone else feel bad. You know, you know what it is, but it's like, what I was realizing is like, no, what we should do is really talk about it to show them that they can also do it. It's not like some magic thing that is happening. Like, I'm just another person, just like they are, that, you know, that you're making. And it's, you know, whether it's sort of visualizing and manifesting your life of dreams, whether it's growing your wealth, whatever it is, whatever you want to do, whatever's on your list of dreams, like you can make it happen. And having other people demonstrate that, and then if you're doing it, you know, sort of in a team building fashion, now like people are getting excited about it together. And it's like, you know, I'm sure that, you know, people are like, what dreams did you do this quarter? You know, that kind of thing, which is awesome. Like, then everybody's just kind of talking about that, you know, I don't know, accomplishment, or, you know, whatever, just putting it into action.
And it creates a family feel too at the business level, because we're not now talking about the last quarter sales numbers or anything else. It's like, hey, I know you had that thing on your dreams list. Did you get it done? What it also does, though, by us talking about is it normalizes. Like, as you were talking about your real estate, it's, I talk about, the real estate pursuits and stuff that my wife and I have openly to the young individuals that are on my team. And I also debated that, where it was, how's this going to sound if I'm talking about this new, multi-unit that we just purchased and all that. But what I have found is that the more that I talk about it, it normalizes it and lets them understand that, oh, well, that's actually doesn't seem as difficult as maybe what I thought it was. And, then we're able to help individuals, move forward in life. And I think the other thing when it comes to the dream stuff is it's not I think about that, what's the book, The Secret, right? Are you familiar with this?
No,
So essentially it's like, this is not one of those that's like, hey, write your dreams list and then just like think about it or say it every day and they're going to happen. Right. It's not what this is. What I love about this is the mindset that it takes to kind of live the dreams mentality is the exact same mindset that I would want any team member of mine to have, which is how to solve problems. And so what's interesting to look at it, it's just a different spin on problems. So I have a dream. My dream is to go, I want to go on a 1-month camping trip with my family. So there's my problem to solve. So how do I figure out my schedule, the finances, all of that? Well, that skill set is used all the time in business. How do I fund this deal? How do I, hit this sales benchmark, or, whatever the thing is specific to the industry. But I think that what's great is keeping people moving forward with that. It's, we're getting people used to and comfortable with that whole, hey, here's the problem. Doesn't have to be negative. And how do I solve it?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I guess I hadn't even really thought about it in the, usefulness for a business mind. I think, we talked about just that employee retention, but yeah, actually their performance and their ability to problem solve totally relates to that. So, I mean, a really, really cool, powerful exercise. The reason I asked you how big of a company is, because I'm like, I don't know if I have enough employees to do this workshop, but it just sounds like such a great thing to, kind of implement and show appreciation. To the people that work for you.
And Jason, we've done it where smaller teams, and I've done this internally, where I'll take my, just my lead, let's call it 5 to 7 individuals. And we've done it them plus spouse. And that was a really cool, I was so nervous to do that, because at first it was like, well, I know these people kind of like speak our language and I have that relationship with them.
Yeah.
And the first time I did the spouse part, I was like, I mean, this could be total wild card. And it was great. And what was great is it no longer was one team member. And I talk about this often. It wasn't like a team member going home with a list of 200 things to their wife or husband and be like, all fired up, look at all these things I'm going to do. And the other person's like, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
So it allows them to kind of dream together and start the conversation that they can go home with.
Yeah, no, it's actually probably better that way, right? Because if you're that person that comes home with a list of 200 things and your spouse has no list, and it's like, well, now your dreams are just dominating that. Like, I've got 200 things we need to do over these next couple of years, try and keep up. It's kind of like, if they're forming those together, I think that's a really great way to do it. A really great point. You could turn this into a couples retreat sort of situation as well. I think it would work well there too. I mean, really cool. I think it's a great concept, and something that I think I want to implement. Dane, why don't we shift gears a little bit here, and I'll kind of ask you the questions that I like to ask each guest.
Sure.
May modify them a little bit, just to be more relevant to sort of what you're doing. But the first one I think is applicable to everybody. It's the reason I named the show Know Your Why. But what's your why? What's your kind of driver in life, kind of motivates you to keep going?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of sum it up by live the life of my dreams and inspires many other people to do the same. And really for me, what it comes back to is impact. My superpower is energy. and I get energy when I give energy. And so for me, the more that I'm able to impact and get those positive stories back of, hey, this is how this changed my life, and this is how all that is just more fuel for me to, be energized in my day to day. And that to me is really what it's about.
So, yeah, I love that, give energy to get energy. I think it for sure, just that, interacting with people with passion, excitement, all of that, whether, whether they're bringing it or you're bringing it, it's gonna, that whole, whole relationship is gonna grow from there, just because of, if it's generally that excitement is infectious, and you can kind of pass that on to someone else. So very cool. Second question for you: tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge, a special skill, a hobby, even something that you would like to learn.
Special skill, hobby. I'm ultra competitive, and I love games and sports that are eye-hand coordination. So bags, horseshoes. I just had the opportunity to do curling for the first time. I love it was awesome. We did it as a team activity up in Minnesota, and it was fantastic. That's so awesome. I love any of those types of games.
Nice. I've only ever seen it on the Olympics, so it's kind of one of those things that's
it's
a sport
hard.
that I know people. It looks terribly hard. Like I feel like it doesn't even. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than what it looks like it is, but it's just like I'm not sure I understand. It's interesting to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's a cool experience though, for sure.
Yeah. I bet. When people hear this and they want to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Yeah, the best way is probably just my website. It's daneespegard.com. And I don't know if now's the right time to say it too. I made the decision at the beginning of this year. The book kind of launched last year. And as I was doing it, I was kind of maybe getting away from what some of my whys were with this, which is to make as big of an impact as possible. Mm-hmm. And so at the beginning of the year, I started just deciding to basically give e-copies of the book away for free. And so anybody who goes to daneespegard.com/gift, or free gift, there's a spot there that somebody can just download the book for free. So if there's any business owners, team leaders that, are confident in their ability to just, hey, I can implement this on my own, they can grab a free copy of the book online.
Nice. That's very generous of you. And we'll put that in the show notes too, so people have it. Final question for you, Dane. What is a piece of advice you would give to someone who is, maybe they're stuck in a rut and they're looking for a way to kind of get their passion back, get remotivated? What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this sounds self-serving, but I really think it's
read the book.
Create. Well, I wouldn't even say it's read the book, sure, but I think it's just create your dreams list. And I'm in the process right now of creating an online version where just a random individual can go and create their dreams list with the same facilitation. Because right now it's just basically through businesses. Mm-hmm. And so once that's up, then I would, say, go do that, create your list. The reason I think that's important is, I think we all go through these kind of ebbs and flows of energy, and all of that is connected to like what we're working on, what we're doing. There's a quote that I heard in 2007, and it's just stuck with me, and it's talked about in the book, but the quote is, when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And if I know what I'm going towards, my day-to-day, it's not hard for me to have energy and excitement and purpose. And so it's not usually that today, so many people are focused on like, I don't know what I want to be doing. It's thinking about in the future. And if we can draw that back, it makes those day-to-day decisions that much easier. And so I really think it's with the dreams list, it doesn't have to be a vocational thing. A lot of times we get stuck on like, what's the job need to be, or what's this? What I have found is that if somebody is just pursuing their passions, which you could call them dreams, passions, whatever, if somebody's living those and pursuing those, they're going to be in a better state of mind to be able to figure out through that, like, what is the next move for me?
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. I mean, I think that people do get stuck in ruts, right? They're, mm-hmm. Have a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, bad year, whatever it is. We've all just, I was going to say we've been through a pandemic. It's still going on, but it's when things are hard, it's easy to kind of get wrapped up in that. And so having this, creating your dreams list, it does give you that, sort of motivation, passion, whatever word you want to use to kind of be excited about the future. And so, yeah, I have like a list in my head of who I'm going to buy the book for and send to.
That's great.
I just think it's such a cool concept and can really, I think, like pick people up. So I love it. I appreciate you coming on and sharing it with us and kind of talking through some of this stuff. I think it's a very, very powerful opportunity for people to kind of grow from that.
Yeah. Well, it's been my pleasure to be on. I always enjoy the conversation, and people can find me on Instagram as well. And also, if people are interested in the workshops, there's a spot on the website where somebody can find to like connect with me and schedule a call.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dane. Really great. I think the idea, like I said, I was excited about this anyway, but I even more so now, I'm like, I got to figure out ways to implement this, whether it's in my family or my businesses or what, but I really love the idea. So thank you again for coming on.
Yes. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Well, with that, we will go ahead and sign out. I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.